Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Commission is very happy of this opportunity to discuss with ComAgri the hemp sector. To our memory, it's the first time we've had a specific discussion on the sector, and it's opportune and perhaps even overdue. It's a sector we take seriously within DG Agri, notwithstanding the fact that hemp is traditionally seen as a niche crop. But it has its legitimate place in the CMO regulation, and DG Agri, the Commission, has been happy to support it over the years. As you acknowledged in your introduction, there are specific provisions, and I'll turn to those in more detail later, but these relate in particular to the THC content of hemp. It's a formal requirement that this has to be less than 0.2%. Which will shortly be raised to 0.3%. And this in part explains some of the, let's say, the complications and difficulties that traditionally associated with the sector, namely its association with cannabis, which is, in the context of hemp, an industrial product, a misunderstanding. DG Agri has always been very clear in insisting that it is a legitimate crop and deserves to be supported. As the Chair acknowledged, under the existing cap, hemp producers have been eligible for direct payments. And in addition, voluntary couple support is available to those Member States that are interested. And a number of Member States have taken that option up, notably France, Romania and Poland. Of course, we're now on the cusp of a new cap, and it remains to be seen to what extent Member States will take up the opportunities in their cap strategic plans to support the sector. But on our preliminary checks of these plans, for example, a number of Member States envisage using coupled income support under the reform cap, and this includes France, Poland and Finland. And there will be opportunities also for sectoral plans, and hemp lends itself to such opportunities, and it appears Latvia envisages a sectoral plan. And of course, there are opportunities to support producer organisations. And I'd mention in that context, in the CMO reform proposals and in the CAP reform in general, we had a rather complicated and difficult negotiation on the role of producer organisations in the hemp sector, largely associated to the producer organisations in Germany, where there is a very long traditional production of hemp in that country through producer organisations, and we found a formula to, let's say, accommodate that formula moving forward. There will also be opportunities, obviously, under the Rural Development Programme to support the sector. So to be seen to what extent all this is taken up. Now, returning to the sector and its structure, based on Eurostat data, there are 35,000 hectares or so of hemp in production in Europe, corresponding to production of 153,000 tonnes. However, this is somewhat of an underestimate. From information from our stakeholders, in particular, DG Agri understands that the figure is substantially bigger. So, for example, the projections for production in 2021 were of the order of 190,000 tonnes or so. And it's a sector which is growing fast, and that's to be encouraged because we want to create new, innovative, high value added opportunities for our farmers. And hemp is one such sector. Turning to the uses of hemp, its traditional use has largely been in relation to seeds and fibre. It's a product which has been used, for example, in textiles for literally hundreds of years. However, what is of most interest and explains its growth in recent years is an increasing use of new uses. For example, in construction materials, hemp has a lot of value added and very high insulation properties. So the sector is showing a lot of interest, and of course being a natural product and sustainable, there are clear incentives to make greater use of it in that context. It also has a lot of potential for the production of bio-based plastics and biofuels. So again, a lot of producers are seeking out opportunities in that context. So when evaluated against sustainability criteria, hemp scores very highly, and new opportunities, for example, are emerging in relation to plant-based proteins and the bioeconomy. But perhaps where it scores highest is in relation to sustainability. For example, hemp requires very little pesticide use. It's very drought resistant. It sequesters a lot of carbon, and it's very biodiverse friendly. So on all those criteria, it scores extremely highly. Looking to the future, and this is the area of greatest interest, the opportunities that will present itself for increased production of hemp. I acknowledged earlier that traditionally the association of hemp with cannabis acted as somewhat of, let's say, a disincentive. There was a lot of confusion. People wrongly, unfairly associated hemp with cannabis. However, fortunately, the Court of Justice provided a very valuable judgment in 2018. This judgment concluded that cannabinoid, which is an ingredient in hemp, is not a drug. So that clarified once and for all this unfair association with narcotics and drugs. And that also opens up the prospect of much more widespread use of hemp in a variety of different sectors, building on its very strong sustainability record. And these additional uses, for example, include uses in cosmetics, flavourings, food supplements, novel foods, and veterinary products. And it was in the light of these new opportunities that DG Agri sought to bring the main stakeholders together with the Member States in a number of meetings, with two formal meetings of our so-called GREX committee with the Civil Dialogue Group to discuss the new opportunities opening up for hemp, especially those arising due to this Court of Justice judgment. And in that context, we have to make clear that while the court concluded that it is not a drug, that does not mean that hemp and its, let's say, its ingredients can be used freely, etc. In each of the relevant sectors, whether it's as a food additive, a flavouring, a medicinal product, etc., it has to go through the relevant regulatory controls and hoops. So, for example, when people speak about the use of hemp as a novel, as a food, it has to be made clear that it has to be considered as a novel food and therefore needs a thorough EFSA assessment. So in each of these areas, as I highlighted, it will have to be evaluated on its merits. And in some cases, that will take time. Nonetheless, it's clear that the direction for this product is that there are and will be increased opportunities, building again on the sustainability record. And one by one, the hope and expectation is that hemp will, and its ingredients, notably the flowers, will find its way through the relevant regulatory processes and find safe uses in, and I cite them again, cosmetics, flavourings, food supplements, food itself, animal feed, etc., because that ultimately is where the real potential lies, not in hemp as an industrial product for its traditional uses, but these new innovative products. And so to conclude, I mentioned in my introduction that this is a niche product, but DG Agri has always been very supportive of the sector. We've always found the time and the resources to basically invest in its future, notwithstanding the, let's say, the misapprehensions and misunderstandings about the sector, and hopefully that will now pay dividends moving forward, and that we will see it increase in scale in the area under production, the volumes in production, and that it will play especially a key role in under the sustainability umbrella of the CAP. I'll stop at that, Mr. Chair, and obviously if there are questions, I'm happy to take them.